Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style. This is the show where we take a deep dive into the Cincinnati sports world. We try to figure out what's going on with these teams around here. Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style, where our takes are just like the chili, kind of runny.
And you have to live here to enjoy it.
I am Mike, with me as always, Scott. Joe is behind the computer there. Scott, you're feeling really great this week, right?
Yeah.
You as a Niners fan, you
2-0.
The Niners come into Cincinnati, utterly destroy the Bengals, take away any hope that we had. Everything we built up after week one, the Niners just come in and rip it away. We'll get into that Bengals talk here in a little bit and let Scott gloat. I owe you a hypno shot. We made that bet last week, so I'll pay up on that one too once we get into the Bengals. We're going to talk Reds' magic number and what they need to do. That we're close. It could happen. This close to a 500 season, maybe. And I also want to talk about Suarez. Suarez being like the lone bright spot in this Reds organization this year.
It's also the quietest that you'll ever see that number of home runs at.
Insane. He's been completely overshadowed.
In fact, somebody texted me, and I thought, they typoed that. There's no way he's got that. Oh, he does that.
Right,
that many
he really
home runs.
does. Yeah.
Like, quietest
insane.
ever.
We're also going to talk some UC football, peek ahead to the conference schedule that's coming up. There's only one more out-of-conference game, and then UC is going to be getting into their American schedule with UCF coming to town in a couple weeks here. So we're going to look ahead to that one after we gloat about me winning and correctly picking that game against Miami, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into all that, we want to remind you guys that Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style is brought to you by Minuteman Tickets. Ladies and gentlemen, football is back, and there's only one spot you should be heading to get your college football or NFL tickets, and that's Minuteman Tickets. We love Minuteman. They're Ohio guys. They're sports fans, and they're not going to screw you over like other ticketing places. And it's not just football either. They got it all. They got baseball. The Blue Jackets are coming back. They got hockey tickets, theater, rib cook-offs. It doesn't matter. Hit them up, MinutemanTickets.com, or give them a call, 614-943-3000, and avoid all of the fees. That's 614-943-3000. Tell them you heard about them right here on Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style. All right, man. Let's talk Bengals. Go ahead, Joe. Hit us with the music on this one while I get the hypno ready, because
that I didn't go how I expected either, to be fair.
Not even close. Apparently the Niners, that's who. Good Lord, man. All right, so we come in after that Seattle game, and we have this hope. Man, you just went to Seattle, lost by a point to a team that's got what seems like a fairly decent defense, and I realize they're not the same Seattle defense that they've always been.
They're a playoff contender, period. That's all you need to say about them.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, Dalton balls out. Like, the team didn't look terrible, and it's like, here we go. We got this.
Well,
then the Niners
said they got it. I said that they would still lose, but I knew
you didn't think it was going to be like this.
Yeah,
right.
No, never.
And that's what I mean by we got this. I just mean like the team is on a good path. It's not the same old.
Because it is. This year won't be as bad as we possibly thought.
You know what I really thought it was going to be? I really thought the Bengals this year were going to be what everybody thought the Reds were going to be when they were talking about the Reds in the offseason, where it's like, this team is weird, but it's going to be interesting to watch because I mean, maybe they're going to do great. Maybe they'll surprise people. Maybe they won't. But that didn't happen. Like, this has sucked.
Not even close.
All of the life out of the season, and we're 2 weeks in. Week 2, and it didn't even make it all the way through week 2. It was at halftime when people were like, "Oh, here we go.
I'm out."
Just a pitiful performance. You were there at the game. What was it like? Because it seemed, by the end of that, it seemed like there were a lot of Niners fans in that stadium.
Truth be told, I've only been to one other NFL game in my life, and it was in 2012 when the Niners were here.
Nice.
And at that game, and that's when, Harbaugh was in charge, there was not nearly as many 49ers fans, which is what you would expect. It's not close.
Right.
I personally don't know too many 49ers fans. I have a couple of friends here and there, but very scattered. It was red.
That's what it looked like on TV,
and
man.
what I keep telling everybody, what I was telling everybody all week, at one point I went to the concessions to grab some food, and I was in a weird spot where I couldn't see any monitor, so I didn't know what was going on. It was one of those, hurry up, let's get my food because this is ridiculous. I can't see the game right now where I'm standing. And something happens, and I just hear this roar from the crowd, and I'm like, that's no good. That's probably something good for the Bengals. And realized once I got over, the Niners made a stop. It was Niners fans that were cheering. It sounded like
terrible.
And I thought, wow, that's really weird. So yeah, there was so much red.
And that's bizarre to see that after all the excitement from week one.
Right.
Unless people sold those tickets beforehand, which is very possible. Like before, they were just
but my only thing is it's the home opener for a new coach. No more Marvin. Like I figured people would have just stuck it out no matter what. Like even if you were, disillusioned by whatever and just, I'm not in, but I've got these season tickets and I'm just going to ride it out. Like that you wouldn't have sold them for the first game of a new era. So it was definitely shocking. Like if you told me this was the second home game, yeah, okay, people are like, whatever, I'm checking out. This is going to be more of the same. But the first home game after a close week one loss, it was shocking. I did not see it coming. Enjoy that.
Cheers, man. I just finished it because I poured it, and I was like, I'm not putting that little bit left in the bottle. I'll just finish what we had left, which then becomes an even bigger punishment because now I have to go buy more Hypno, and that's never a good thing to do. So
cheers.
Congrats to your Niners.
But while we're talking about it, I mean, it wasn't just the way that or it wasn't just the score, and it was just the way that they did it because the Niners in week one struggled to establish the run. There was no struggling in this game with the run. They were running the ball at will, over 200 yards on the ground.
That's what I couldn't figure out.
In an era of the passing NFL, like nobody even runs the ball anymore. So the fact that they were able to do it for over 200 yards is insane.
I could not believe how poor the defense looked when it came to the running game. Like it was like they weren't even there. I mean, it was paper thin defensive line. The Niners owned that line matchup. It was unreal to me to see how I didn't know if it was a matchup thing or what, but good Lord, it was like the scheme totally changed from week one to week two, where all of a sudden everybody just forgot what happened and then how they handled things in the first week of the season.
I mean, honestly, the way that we kind of expected it, just looking at it on paper, if you flip these two scores, it would have been much more in line with kind of what you thought. Everybody thought, Seattle, got to go out there. That's a tough place to play. It's loud. Right. It's first game of a new regime. Just a lot of turnover that they'll get blown out and it won't be pretty. And then, they'll come home and new coach and, things look encouraging. So from that standpoint, I mean, I don't know what you wanted, I guess, if you're a Bengals fan from the sense of, you knew or you have to know or understand that this year there was going to be a lot of growing pains. There's going to be games that happen like this. The timing is odd, but in general, again, if you flip the two results, it just makes you feel better going into week 3, I guess, because the results were better. But I mean,
well, yeah, because in that case you're seeing progress instead of a regression between the 2 weeks. Like if that's how it went, you went out to Seattle and lost 41-17 and then came back home and lost to the Niners 21-20, people are going to be like, well, they got better. That's a good thing, right? But instead it's like, what the hell happened?
But in general, I mean, you look at it as they're not as good as they were in Seattle, and they're not as bad as they were against San Francisco. This team is somewhere in between the two, and that's still encouraging.
So you think that's a lot of this is just like they're struggling to find that identity and find out what team they are?
Well, for sure, because, I mean, at the end of the day, Zach Taylor's got to get his guys in there. He was given a not completely bare cover, but a pretty decently bare covered, and we all know that this is either Andy Dalton's last year or close to it, and most likely the last year just based on the fact that they can get out of his contract and not owe him anymore. And if there's anybody within shouting distance, they're probably going to try to draft him. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that this year was just going to be a not throwaway year, but a lot of let's see what we got type year. And so these games, sure, it's weird to see after they played so well in the first game, but they were going to come. So it's
surprisingly, though, Dalton has been the one on the offense that has been impressive. Like
Yeah, Dalton's
Andy
looked
Dalton has
better
looked
than he's
really
ever
good.
looked
That first game,
in 2 games.
obviously a career game in the first game,
Right.
but this second one, he goes for over 300 yards again. He had 2 touchdowns. There was the one interception that he threw, but I mean that's gonna happen. It's the
Well,
NFL.
And it's not his fault. I mean, the offensive line was giving him no help
Right.
in this game.
And
None.
not only that, there is, and I know you mentioned pass first NFL offense. You still have to have somewhat of a rushing attack, and this is now the
And they have
second.
none for
and,
2 games.
We gave him the
None.
excuse of the first week of, well, Joe Mixon was out, so
Right,
okay,
he got
maybe
injured.
Joe Mixon comes back in, carries the ball 11 times for 17 yards.
I think that, again, when you're talking about surprising, didn't see the score being like that, didn't see a game in which I didn't think that they'd run all over the Niners, but I certainly didn't think that after Mixon coming back that it would be, oh, yeah, they completely shut it down.
If I told you on the episode last week, if I said, hey, by the way, the Bengals are going to have 25 rushing yards in the game, would you have believed me? Because that's what
No.
they finished with, 25 yards on the ground.
And actually, to be perfectly honest with you, based on the way the week went prior, I would have been nervous, and that means, oh my God, that means Andy Dalton's probably going to throw for 400 again. Like, that's what it would have meant. Like, okay, then they couldn't establish the run, so that must mean it was because they were passing all, and like that's not good. But yeah, no, it was a rough game all the way around. For
I mean,
the
you
Bengals.
you can't ask for anything more from Dalton. He gets sacked 4 times. He still completes over 50% of his passes. He looks like a different guy. Like this offense clearly suits Andy Dalton. He's not the same Andy Dalton that we've seen his entire career. And then on top of that, you get these receivers who are stepping up big time with AJ Green being out. Tyler Boyd goes for 122 yards.
Is it like 10 or 11 receptions?
Yeah, and it's crazy. And then on top of that, we were worried that John Ross might take a step back after his breakout performance in week 1. He balled out. He comes out in week 2 and goes for over 100 yards on 4 catches.
Well,
Like,
to be fair, that one, the longest catch where he had the
Still
touchdown.
counts. Still
counts.
counts.
I know. But it was in garbage time against the backups. I mean, but still
counts.
for me, and mostly for now in general, Cincinnati fans, hey, Eifert and John Ross, 2 weeks. Made it out of the game healthy.
Yep.
That's what
Keep
you
it
look
going.
for with those 2 names. So, and you know what? They moved the ball. I actually thought, again, I didn't think that the Niners would lose this game, but the score-wise, I thought about 20-17 49ers. So the Bengals actually did what I thought they would do.
They hit right.
But they didn't, they allowed double the points that I thought they would. And, when you're looking at, like, kind of the numbers, Cincinnati didn't necessarily, like, play awful. It's that the 49ers played so much better.
Right.
That the Bengals ended up being one-dimensional, and when that happens, like, you're just kind of screwed. And the Niners scored the touchdown. Bengals came right back and drove down the field and made it 7-7. I was like, well, maybe we're going to have a shootout.
That's
maybe
what I
this
was
game
hoping
isn't
for.
gonna,
I was like, this
so
is gonna be
it won't
so-
be a
this is gonna
low-scoring
be
game.
awesome.
It's going to be, 35-36 or something crazy like that. But then the Bengals just stopped scoring.
Just bangled.
I mean, the biggest thing was that San Francisco offensive line, 3 of your top 4 tacklers are your safety, and corner with 11, 9, and 6.
Yeah.
And your linebacker led the team with 14 tackles.
That's terrible, man.
The best lineman was Dunlap, who had 6 tackles, 2 by himself.
That is so garbage. That's seriously.
Well, I mean, when your secondary has that many tackles, then you know it was a long day. Like, it just can't happen like that.
I mean, the Niners ran for 259 yards.
Between 3 different guys, all of which the average Bengals fan couldn't name a single one of.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, because they were depleted. Their running back core was depleted coming into that game. As a matter of fact, when I was listening to
Jeff
Fourth and
Wilson
Gold,
was signed off the practice squad this week to play in the game and scored 2 touchdowns.
yeah, scores 2 touchdowns, averages 3 yards a carry. Thanks, man.
Raheem Mostert is a special teams guy who was thrust into the backup role. He had a huge run.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Breida, who, fantasy football players know just because there's been 1 or 2, but he's a guy who went undrafted 2 years ago and, is this very quietly one of the better running backs in the NFL. But, again, not a household name. So
Yeah.
if you're looking at it from a Bengals fan's perspective, the average fan who's not really paying attention to all that, you're like, oh, they got 3 guys at running back that I've never heard of. They should be able to key in on the run today and not have to worry about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I was listening to a friend of the show, Matt Barr. He did he does Fourth and Goal podcast, which is a Niners centric podcast. And my takeaway from that was, well, the Niners aren't going to be able to run. So we just got to stop Garoppolo. And we got to hope he has another one of those 5 interception games. And we could totally lock this one down to that 24-21 pick that I had. And then all of a sudden I'm like, who are these dudes? And how are they running roughshod on this team?
Yeah.
Awful. So I guess looking forward, what do we take away from this game? Is this one of those games that it's like, all right, chalk it up to it's a new coach, it's whatever,
It's growing pains.
it's going to happen, and move on and don't read too much into it? Or are Bengals fans supposed to look at this and go, no, this season's going to really suck?
Well, I really think that, again, what the team is somewhere in between these 2 games. Not as bad, not as good, but there's not much you can glean out of just two games this early in the season with no AJ Green and just the way things are. This Buffalo game coming up this week is an interesting test because Buffalo's 2-0, but whoever really believes in Buffalo and how good are they? They won 2 road games, so but I mean they're a little
Their
bit better.
tailgates are going to be lit.
Yeah, that's
I
for
know
sure.
that. I mean, they got
Well,
us beat there.
Bills Mafia is undefeated every year, so
Miami's giving them a run for their money.
that's true.
Miami
The Bills
they're
have ever-
stepping their game up.
They've never set up a strip club right in the parking lot. Then again, there's so much stripping of just regular people.
That's true.
that
They don't need to.
They don't bother. but-
Before we get into this Bills game, though, I want to backtrack real quick. Joe Mixon was quoted this week as saying some ridiculous things in the post-game press conference. He was around his locker, and Keenan Singleton from WCPO, friend of the show, he had tweeted this out where Joe Mixon basically said it was disappointing, and I'm paraphrasing, it was disappointing to see fans leaving early and people booing. He was like, it's the second quarter, and we got people booing. If you think you could do better, go try out for the team. I was so furious when I heard that quote. Like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, first of all, man, you ran as a team for 25 yards. I'm not saying I could run for 25 yards against an NFL defense, but I'm also not getting paid millions of dollars, and that's my only job.
right.
I'm not saying I could do any better, but I'm saying you should be better. Like, you can't put out a performance like you put out and then tell fans, what are you booing us for? What are you talking about? Like, that's crazy to me.
Well, when I heard it immediately, because I read it before I heard the soundbite, and I thought, oh, that's just totally him being frustrated at his performance, the fact that he got hurt in the first week, and that he never was able to get going.
But
and,
say that.
well, right. So he
Don't blame the fans.
He definitely didn't direct his anger in the right spot, but I also think that it was frustration from not being able to say, well, if my offensive line could block
yeah,
for
that's true.
me.
You can't really blame it on the line either. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's
let's
kind
kick the
of
fans.
Right, I was just gonna say it's kind of one of those things. He definitely shouldn't have done it. I would ease up on blaming the fans and telling them, hey, they're okay. And he did backpedal. He went out and tweeted, oh well, it's heat of the moment, but.
Heat of the moment.
I do think that he should have walked that one back a little further, and then it's like next time, don't be in such a quick rush to blame the fans.
I mean, I get it. I understand it's week 2 and you got people leaving early.
Sure,
But it's also a complete blowout in some of the hottest weather that I've ever seen. Like, it was, what, 95 degrees on Sunday?
on the field, I heard that it was 100. The heat index was
Yeah,
over 100.
I heard them say that
Wow.
on Flying Pigskin. They
Yeah, so it
mentioned-
was very hot on there, but
So you can't blame the fans for bailing.
But as Joe mentioned earlier this week, they're not necessarily bailing the one game. They're bailing the past few years of ineptitude.
Right.
So it's kind of just a, wow, we've seen this before, and here we go again type
Yeah.
bluing.
Well, so now we move on to Buffalo, where ESPN's predictor is giving the Bengals a 32% chance of winning this game. I'm kind of shocked by that because Buffalo just seems like one of those teams that even when it looks like they're going to be good, they end up being trash anyways. Like they're never a team that really scares me in any way. And I know they're
No.
2-0 to start the year, and I understand that, but I feel like that's an inflated record. It's not a true
Buffalo
test of who they are.
Well, I mean, they've played the crap Giants and the crap Jets so far this day. So again,
They
who really
did-
knows what Buffalo
They
is?
did force the Giants to get rid of Eli Manning. That's
true.
like, Buffalo has shelved Eli Manning, so there you go on that one. But yeah, they struggled with the Jets too. And granted, week 1, whatever. But
Right.
Cleveland just went out and smacked the Jets. Although Cleveland did get the Jets in their 3rd string quarter. Okay, I'm making all kinds of crazy comments. here.
Buffalo is though another one of those teams that no matter what, like I don't think in our lifetime since they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, even when they were kind of good a few years snuck in there in the Eric Moulds days, where they were ever a dominantly good team. They're always a
Right.
team that's going to grind one out. So Cincinnati should be at least able to hang in this game until the 4th quarter. Like Buffalo's not going to run away with this one at any given point, I don't think. So
We got a spread of 6 on this one. Did you have this one in the regular show?
I did. I picked the Bills because when you're talking about a spread of 6, I think that the Bills should win by a touchdown. But again, that's not
Right.
running away with it. But I definitely could see the Bills at the end scoring a touchdown, within the last half of the 4th quarter that, more or less seals it, and then Cincinnati's not able to.
I think that's what's most frustrating now is for the rest of the year, we have to just hope that the right Bengals team shows up. I think that's where Bengals fans are most
Sure.
upset after this week 2 performance, because it's like now we don't know what we're getting week to week. If it was consistent and it's like, okay, they're not that great, but they're consistent.
Right.
Cool. You know what you're getting from week to week, but it's this weird, wild swings of, hey, they actually look good. Hey, now they're garbage. What are they? And maybe that will settle out as the year goes. So this will be an interesting game to see how this one plays out. On the road again, 2nd road game in 3 weeks, which can't be fun, especially. But at least you're going to Buffalo now and not in
Better to
November
do-
and December.
I was just going to say, better to do it when there's 2 feet of snow on the ground.
So your prediction is that the Bills win this one by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, they'll find a way to pull it out by a touchdown.
I feel like this is one where the Bills win, and I feel like I'm going to jinx it though, but I feel like they don't cover.
How weird would it be though if this ended up being where the Bengals seem to play better on the road because there's slightly less expectations? Like the home crowd puts the expectations in one being on the road, and then maybe the season they just play better on the road because they're loose and nobody expects them to win.
I'm on board with them being road warriors this year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say, oh well, they'll win a lot of road games or anything, but just the fact that on the road they'll look more like a team that's watchable and that you're more proud of than at home necessarily, where they might struggle just because again, home fans, if they play a little tighter because they know the fans might start booing if they're not clicking on all cylinders, and it doesn't take much for the fans to turn. So
Well, going in after this Bills game, they go to Pittsburgh, so I'd be great for a nice road performance there. So if this team is going to be a road warrior
that'd be an
team,
interesting game now that Ben's on.
that's going to be okay. The AFC North is insane right now.
Like it's all over the place.
I have no idea where to go with the AFC North. So Lamar Jackson continues the ball out, and people will again point to, well, they haven't played the best competition in Baltimore. But Lamar Jackson is looking legit. The Browns come out on Monday Night Football and look like the Browns that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. Like week 1 was the anomaly, and this is what they were supposed to see. But then everybody backs it up with, well, Trevor Siemian was the backup, and he got hurt, and you're playing some guy that they pulled out of the stands at quarterback. So there's really no credit given to the Browns there. And then the Steelers and the Bengals are both 0-2. I could have seen the Bengals being 0-2 to start the season, but not the Steelers. And with Roethlisberger out for the rest of the season, this division is wide open, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pick 'em at this point right now. I mean, obviously the leaders in the clubhouse are going to be the Ravens and the Browns, but who knows how the rest of the season will play out? And you have no
Dude,
idea.
Look at that point differential for the Ravens so far this year.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
That is absolutely ridiculous. What is that? 55-point difference that they've got going on there? Unreal that's what they are doing to teams. That's the team that scares me. Like this is one of the few times where I'm like, yeah, whatever, go into Pittsburgh. Who cares? Who's throwing the rock in Pittsburgh anyways? Like, I'm not sweating it because Roethlisberger's out. Cleveland, I'm scared of. Baltimore, I'm really scared of.
Yeah.
But good Lord, man. All right, so you got the Bills winning this one. I think they do as well. All I'm looking for is just a decent performance. I think Bengals fans wouldn't be booing. They wouldn't be leaving early if the team at least shows consistency.
Well, and that that's what I'm gonna continue to hammer home this season. Is that you look for wins from.
Thank you for reining me in. I appreciate it because
play to play, drive to drive, possession to possession. You look for little victories here and there. Oh, hey, great! They looked pretty awesome on that last series. They moved the ball well. Oh, hey, they got defensive stops there, and maybe that they lose the game, but. Progress where, it matters. Oh, hey, is Tyler Boyd continuing to be, good? Is John Ross staying healthy and playing well?
We got blown up, but Eifert still has both feet. Cool.
Right, yeah. I mean, you got to take the victories where you can get them and not, focus solely on the wins and loss column because otherwise, then, yeah, you're just going to be disappointed and pissed off all season.
All right, well, let's switch gears here. Let's go from football to our other lovable losers here in Cincinnati this year. And that would be my favorite Cincinnati Reds.
And this one belongs to the Reds.
Magic number down to 2. And that magic number again is to avoid 90 losses on the season. All we got to do is win 2 more games, and we're going to avoid 90 losses on the year. And if they go 10-0, if they win out, 500 season. That's a W in my book. That'd be huge. Also, if they go 10-0, how amazing would that be? If they end the season 10-0 after starting the season, they went on like that 9-game losing streak. Yeah. So if they end it with the
poetic bookends.
Oh, that'd be amazing. It ain't gonna happen. There's no way that they're gonna win 10 in a row to finish out the season.
Well, and that's one of those kiss of death things in baseball, where if for whatever reason, it kind of happens sometimes in football too, where you get delusional into thinking, you know what? Next year we've got some pieces. Like we don't need to make that many changes in the offseason. We're good to go. I mean, did you see? We rattle off the last 10 to end the year, and it could be one of those fatal kiss of death things where you think the team's actually better than it is because of the recency bias. Like, could be the worst thing to happen to them. They play well down the stretch.
You're telling me basically what I've done all year long, where it's like we got some pieces here. Like this rotation next year is gonna look pretty solid. And you got
talking
Votto,
yourself into more
Suarez in there. O'Grady has been looking really good. He's gonna come up. Senzel is playing pretty well. Like I have rationalized that this team will be fairly decent next year,
and what
for the most.
And Aristotle Aquafina has come back down to earth, right? He stopped hitting home runs every single inning.
Yeah, Keno definitely kind of came back to the real world.
Remembered that you don't hit home runs at that rate for your entire career.
I was hoping. I was like, maybe this is the one time it does happen. Maybe this guy has it all figured out.
He never looked back as he made the Hall of Fame from his rookie year.
And then the pitchers were like, hey, by the way, thank you for this film. We got you now.
Which is inevitable.
He became Pedro Serrano from Major League, where he can't hit anything anymore. Aquino is one of those players that has definitely come back to earth. But I do feel like, he's 0 for 3 tonight with 2 strikeouts so far.
Well, what is he at? His batting average. Oh, so he's down to 256.
Yeah, not doing too hot. But I do feel like there are, and I know you just made fun of the fans for saying this, but I do feel like there are pieces on this team that are bright spots looking ahead to next year. I think the rotation is solid. Sonny Gray has looked fantastic. The fact that he's going to be back is great for this team. Luis Castillo obviously is one of those guys that is going to be a big name. Trevor Bauer, you get what you get out of him. Sometimes he's great. Sometimes he doesn't have any fingers because he was playing with his drone. And then you get Disco as your 4th starter. That is a solid 4.
Well, and Tyler Mahle was once the top pitching prospect in the organization.
And he's the number 5 guy.
No, I mean, I think their rotation is, for the first time, at the very absolute least, you can say stable. And that's the first time in 10 years maybe that you could look at their rotation and say that's about as stable as it gets.
I mean, it's probably since the Cueto days, right?
Well, yeah, and I'm saying, what was that? Like you were coming up on 8
Good Lord, it has been that long.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like
2012.
it's been like 10, 8
2012
years,
is
since
7
then. It's
years
like,
ago. Good Lord.
It's been a while since you were like, oh wow, this rotation is stable. Not
Time
not
flies.
even like, hey, great, but I mean, it has the potential to be pretty solid in the National League.
Time really flies when you.
It does.
Okay, but so the rotation is good. The bullpen needs some shoring up, but the
Man, I feel like
lineup.
everybody in baseball needs bullpen shoring
Right.
up.
That's why I don't feel
That's
that
not even
bad
a-
about that. And I think as long as you still have Lorenzen and Garrett in that bullpen, you still have some decent arms in there. And the lineup doesn't. And we said it at the beginning of the year. The lineup on paper didn't look bad. Like the lineup was. It was like, okay, these guys could make noise.
I think they're a victim of the division that they play in. I mean, they're just
Wow,
they
that's
play in a
true,
division
yeah.
where the teams are just that much
the
better
Cubs- the
and that
Cubs
much more
outs-
solid.
Well, and the Cubs outspend them by like $90 million. So of
Yeah.
course the Cubs are going to
And
be.
the Brewers have MVP and Yelich and
and then the Cardinals are these.
or the somehow find a way every year, no matter what their situation is.
Unreal that they are going
They
to
really
be a
are.
90-win
I
team.
mean, they really. I know they are the Steelers to the city, but they really are like the Steelers of baseball, where they every year you're like, well, the Cardinals got to have a down year, or they got to fall off, and
Nope.
hey, Carpenter's retiring, and this guy's moving on, and this guy gets older, and somehow they still always find themselves
Yeah.
in the thick of things or winning.
They
the
just
division.
replace coaches. They do whatever.
Yeah.
They don't care. And all of a sudden, it's just, where did they come from? What? Are you serious?
And we talked about it on the regular show. They'll somehow make it to the World Series and win it all, and nobody will be able to explain why, because nobody can name any Cardinals this year.
But the one bright spot in this Reds lineup, and the guy that I think the Reds need to hold on to as much as possible, is Suarez. Eugenio Suarez has, you want to talk about quiet, that dude has made no noise this year and is among the league leaders in home runs. I think at last count, he's at 47. Thank you, Joe, for pulling that up. 47 home runs. Where did that come from?
It's the quietest 47 home runs you will ever
I mean, he was.
hear.
I know he was overshadowed by Pete Alonso because that was the name that everybody was bringing up because he's a rookie and he's dominating like this. But Suarez also has 101 RBIs on the team.
I mean, how can you like in these days? Obviously, the ball is flying out, so it's like the floor as far as home runs has moved up. It's not as impressive when guys
Sure.
get to 20 anymore. That used to be kind of a number where you're lower end, like
That's
second
like
baseman and whatnot.
I was gonna say that's like a natural number now. If
Right,
you're
yeah.
not hitting 20. It's like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, that guy's a replacement level guy. But like also the ceiling, thanks to roids, has been moved down to where it's like, man, you had he could have a 50 home run season. That's super impressive. Like even where home runs have exploded, getting to 50 is a huge deal.
Right.
And the fact that he's got 47, and before Sunday when somebody texted me and asked me, how does Suarez have 40 whatever he had at the time, I think 46, when they text me, I would have been like, excuse me? He's got how many home runs? Hey, he's near the top of the leaderboard? How?
Yeah, he's only one behind Pete Alonso for the league. That's
insane.
insane that he is that high up.
Because how many guys in the National League that would you name just assuming that they were ahead? I mean,
I probably would have guessed Acuna was ahead of him.
yeah, Bellinger's in there who was leading the league. Was
Probably
there.
would have guessed Yelich was ahead of him.
Yelich, Arenado in Colorado, just because you're like, oh, it's Colorado, he's got to have high run total.
I probably would have picked somebody from Chicago like Bryant.
Harper because he's a
Harper,
household name,
yep.
like just a bunch of guys, and then they're like, nope, Suarez is ahead of them all. and a rookie, by the way, is ahead of all of them.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, the rookie
Go
leads
figure.
the league.
Baseball, baby.
And it's not even close. Acuna's at 39. Suarez is that far ahead of Acuna. He's almost 10 home runs ahead of Acuna.
But you wouldn't know based
You'd have
on the
no
way
idea.
everything is done and covered.
So Suarez is definitely a piece that, again, you made fun of, there's pieces. But Suarez is a piece that you can build around. He is a guy that you keep here in the city and could be a bright spot moving forward into next year.
For sure. I mean, he's definitely the one that you're building. I said it back forever ago on the regular show when we did it. It was like the cornerstones are him and Castillo, and you're building around those two. Like that's if you're stripping everything down to just the nubs, those would be the two that you say, all right, this is who our pitching staff's going to be around,
Right.
and this is who we're going to build our lineup around, and then you go from there. So, having those two pieces is pretty big.
What do you think out of the next 10? How do you think the Reds finish up?
4-6.
I'd be happy with 4-6 to finish out this season because you got games against the Mets, you got games against the Brewers, and then games against the Pirates to finish out the season.
I think the bigger question is there going to be a bench clearing brawl during that Pittsburgh
There
series?
better be.
To close out the season, are we going to get one more brouhaha?
There better be. If there isn't, I will riot. I will fight somebody from Pittsburgh.
Just go down there and start swinging.
Well, it's in Pittsburgh, so that'd be tough to do.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, then. Road trip.
All right, let's do it.
Craft Brewed Sports on the road. We're going to pick a fight.
I've got everything lined up. I'm just gonna make fun of Crick and him getting into a fight with Vasquez and breaking his hand. Right? Turns out Crick is we're on Crick's
hero.
side in this one. Okay, so the Mets series I'm nervous about. The Brewers series I feel like they're gonna be resting up. I don't think they're gonna be too much. And then the Pirates have had the Reds' numbers this year. Like that's a team that
This is weird because the Pirates have been pretty awful.
they've been dog crap, and they for some reason just have Cincinnati's numbers. So I would love to see a sweep to end if they swept to end the year, I'd be ecstatic. I'd feel really good moving into next year, coming off a 3-game sweep over the Pirates.
You would.
I would. I absolutely would. It's like whenever Ohio State, Michigan, when it's like we could go 1-11 as long as we got that win against Michigan. That's all I really
Which
care
I've always
about.
called as BS.
Right.
Because neither fan base would be happy with
It's
that.
not saving Harbaugh's job to go 1-11, except he beat Ohio State. But let's talk some college football. Let's segue into UC football here, as UC coming off a big win over Miami of Ohio.
That you called.
Huge win over Miami over the weekend.
That's for the what's the name of that bell? The victory bell?
Yeah, the
That
victory
they
bell.
made over that?
Yeah. No, and honestly, when I started watching this game late, I turned it on late, and when I flipped it on, it was 10-0 Miami, and I went, "Oh, I'm in trouble. I'm gonna lose this game. That is not gonna be good for me." And then UC just out of nowhere, they come in after halftime, turn it on. Chuck Martin's team turns into a Chuck Martin team that I thought they were gonna be, and UC totally pulls away in the second half. I guess starting in the second quarter, really, because they were up at halftime, and then the second half was unbelievable. After that third quarter, it was over. You can pretty much assume that it was done at that point. UC ends up winning 35-13 over Miami. I didn't realize that was Blaine Gabbert's brother playing for Miami.
I
That
was
the
just
biggest
going-
shock of the game.
I was just going to ask you, Gabbert, as in Blaine?
Yeah, that's Blaine Gabbert's
Blaine
brother.
and Brett.
Of course it is.
Okay.
That kid was actually pretty impressive. He looked good in the first half, not too hot in the second half, but he did look pretty good in the first half. So that's why I was a little worried. I was like, oh, crap, this is Miami's better than I thought they were going to be, but UC totally pulls away. Now we go into a bye week coming up this week to get ready. UC plays at Marshall the week after that, and then UCF comes to town. That's going to be an 8 o'clock ESPN game.
Was that Thursday night?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be a Saturday night game.
Interesting.
It may not be.
Friday night.
Friday night
Friday
lights.
night lights. Wow.
I'm actually kind of
That's
okay with
interesting.
that.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
kinda cool with-
because of the.
doesn't the American do that a lot?
I was gonna say for the
got that
nature of
Friday
it,
spot.
I was just gonna say. I mean, they have the spotlight because of it. I mean, there's not many Friday night games going on in college this time of year. So
Do you think, in Cincinnati in particular, where it is so big on high school football, do you think that's a bad idea to have UC playing on a Friday night? Because I feel like most people here, if they have the choice between seeing UCF, which could be a top 10 team by the time they come to Cincinnati, coming into town, or seeing
their local
St. X
their
play
alma mater,
Moeller,
yeah.
they're going to be like, you know what? It's not going to end well for us. So I'm going to go watch St. X. Like, I think this could be a game similar
Sadly,
to the Bengals-Niners
true.
game, where there's going to be a lot of UCF fans in the stands for that one.
Yeah, no, I agree because it's really crazy on high school football here. So that'd be an interesting poll or like a man on the street interview to ask people like, hey, your team's playing high school matchup, and then there's this big UC game. Which would you rather go?
Where are you going to?
Yeah,
on Friday
I'd be
night?
curious to see like what the consensus was.
All right. Well, I think I have some work to do during the bye week. I may try to do this. I may seriously try to get this.
It's a good question.
I'll go downtown and just start asking people, are you a UC fan? Did you go to high school here? Great. Got a question for you.
Which would you rather?
Would you rather? Sticking
On brand.
All right, so UC traveling at Marshall next. So let's not look ahead of Marshall, which this is a typical trap game. You're on the road.
For sure.
And, Marshall is not a pushover. ESPN predicting that UC is about a 53% chance to win this one. It's not a pushover by any means. And you have UCF coming to town the week after that, so you got guys looking ahead. We could save analysis for that game for next week on the show, but real quick, looking at it, you think they look ahead, or do you think Fickle is going to be getting the guys disciplined enough to focus on Marshall?
I would hope that this season that they're focused, just individual games at a time and not getting too far ahead for a UCF team that, I know it's a top 10 team, but UC isn't at a spot just yet where they're able to overlook anybody. So,
dude, that division is insane. So UC is in the same division as UCF and Temple, and UCF is crushing teams.
Yeah.
The point differential that UCF has is absurd. I think they won their first game 62-0. Thank you, Joe, for pulling this up. 48-14 over Lane Kiffin. And then they get Stanford at home and roll Stanford 45-27. And I was listening to our friends at Scout Team Radio who they're on 12 Ounce Sports Radio with us. They're from Orlando. They're UCF fans. They said that game wasn't even close. Like 45-27 was that makes it seem closer than what this should have been.
They scored 28 points in the first quarter. My
against
God.
Stanford. Here's what I'm wondering though: when this happens, when a UCF crushes a Stanford team like this, and Stanford isn't great this year, but they're also a pretty well-known name in the college football world.
Think about 5 years ago if you said UCF is going to do this to Stanford. Well, first of all, you'd have been shocked like Stanford went to UCF.
Right. That's the. But the question then becomes: does this hurt non-Power 5 teams? Because I feel like whenever a non-Power 5 team pulls out a big win against a Power 5 school, all it does is make other Power 5 schools be like, nope, don't want to play them. Screw it. Why would we risk it? Because now we're at the point where these non-Power 5 teams can do it.
Right.
So now you're going to – and it gives all the talking heads credit to be like, they don't deserve to be in the playoff. Look at their schedule. So if you – like it's a catch-22. You got to build up your schedule, and then you beat a team like this, and then other teams don't want to play you because you've beat other Power 5 teams. And it's like, damn, what are we supposed to do?
Well, and in this case, too, like when they scheduled this, they weren't thinking, Stanford would be not that great. So it's like when you schedule it, oh, this is a big get. And then by the end of this year, we're going to look back on it and be like, oh, yeah, that wasn't that big of a deal that they beat Stanford like that. I mean, it's the Pac-12, and they're always kind of crappy.
Right.
Stanford's
down this year, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like you really are in a no-win situation when you're a team like UCF where it's like no matter what you do, they're going to find a way to discredit it.
Does UC have any chance at the American Conference, knowing that Temple and UCF are in their conference? And Temple is overlooked, and it's because UCF is crushing teams like they are. UCF has a point differential of almost 100 points 3 weeks into this season. In football. But Temple is no different. Temple is looking just as solid. They've got a point differential here. I can't do math in my head, but they're 76-29. Like, that's amazing. And what's kind of scary to me as I'm looking at numbers, and point differential is one of those things that it's a stat that generally falls in, like people start to sort themselves by point differential.
Right.
And what's scary about that is South Florida has a slightly better point differential than UC currently. Nope, I read it wrong. Never mind. We're right in line. We're fine.
All right, good talk.
It's not because South Florida's offense is doing better,
I
but their
read.
defense is also crap.
I read good.
But UC also has played some better competition. They played Ohio State, where UCF can't claim they played a team near Ohio State's caliber. Stanford was supposed to be that team, and they're not. They're nowhere near an Ohio State.
I mean, I think if you're UC, you just feel good about where things have gone and are heading with Fickle. Like where you're like, all right, they may not be in the same class as UCF and Temple at the moment, but they're trending in the right direction.
But that's the problem, because when you're a non-Power 5 team, when you're trending in the right direction, when you're doing well, that coach bolts. So it's like, how long is Fickle going to stay here?
Be here for that long anyway.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, start from scratch, I guess. You know,
Right.
bring it all back. And
Well, you just hope that he builds it up just enough so that the next coach that comes in, doesn't Butch Jones it and like run it all into the ground. I mean, that's your hope.
yeah,
I mean, you're
yeah.
hoping that just the next guy can carry the torch on and like the momentum still continues to build. You're not necessarily thinking, all right, well, we're going to become UCF overnight. But UCF, I mean, they, took those steps, and it was, a process of building it up to where they are now, where you're like, wow, they're really getting hosed over every year for a chance at the playoffs. But, just 5 or 6 years ago, where were they?
Right.
So, that's all you hope for if you're UC, is that the momentum just keeps going and they don't take this giant step back all the way. as I
watch
just
out for that
took mine.
microphone.
Right. Came out of nowhere. Jumped right in front of me. What a jerk.
Well, we'll dig it more into UC. It's weird to have an off week this early in the season, but it could prove costly. I wish it was flip-flopped. I wish they were going to Marshall, and then they have the bye week before playing UCF, but I guess you take what you get in this case.
Right.
Before we close out the show here, just a little update. FC Cincinnati just lost to Atlanta tonight, 2-0.
The first season woes continue.
They are not good, man. They are really not good. It is so rough to be a fan of that team. They are not good.
Expansion Team City, the Golden Knights, they are not.
All right. Well, this has been a really fun edition of Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati style. Stick around. Be sure to share out the show, everybody. Subscribe, rate, review. Help us out. We're building an audience here. Like I'm starting to get people that are like, hey, that's kind of cool that you guys are focusing just on Cincinnati.
Hey, we're like Luke Fickle. We got to build the program.
And listen, unlike Luke Fickle,
We're not
staying.
bolting.
We're
I was gonna
staying.
say,
We're going to be here.
You're
So-
stuck with us.
We promise to give you consistent shows, unlike what Zach Taylor is delivering for the Bengals. And we are not going to be below 500 like you're seeing from the Reds. Did I hit on all of it? We good?
And we definitely won't tank like FC.
That's not even a tank.
I was going to say, they're not trying. We won't be naturally that bad. Even on our worst day, we won't be FC bad. So there's that.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in, for listening. Be sure to help us out and follow the show in between. Hit us up at Craft B Sports. You can follow Scott at ScottyK_Jr. Follow me at Mike Burlon. Follow Joe at Joe Goalie 4. If you guys have any hot takes that you want to drop on us, hit us up on the drunk line 440-37-DRUNK. You can text in as well if you don't feel like leaving a message. We were happy to oblige you of your takes here on the show. So hit us up, connect with us, subscribe, rate, review. Thank you guys so much. Cheers.
Peace.